y'all.
Hey.
This is the very, very, very first Compin, Colorado, which I am so excited about because I get to be the co-host on Straight Outta Compin, which is amazing. But Jamil is fast at what he does. He is always going through comps so quickly, and sometimes we need that slow roll back, really looking at it from a deep underwriting perspective. And of course, we're going to be doing that with Privy. If you guys don't know about Privy, I just want to give you the holler and the shout out that it is the all-time best software for comping. Both Renee and I are licensed agents, and we still use Privy for comping. So we highly suggest it. And we're going to be focused on that today, but it's our very, very first one. So of course I was like, nervous. Let me pull all my favorite people. And of course I've got Renee here, who is from Ask an Agent Anything. You can always catch us on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. And a face you guys might not recognize yet, but you are going to get quite used to, because honestly, if I'm doing it, he's doing it better behind everything in our business. He is the rock that I lean on every day. Austin is with us, my all-time favorite kickflip consultant and underwriter. What's up, Austin?
What's up, y'all?
Love that. Look, he's in a virtual room, and I have my Metallica shirt on. So who's ready to party?
And I've got my comping bucket hat on. So like, it's just
I have a blue one. I should go get it.
Guys, if you have Colorado addresses and things that you want to talk about, feel free to drop it in the chat. We will get there. But since this is our first one, we're going to kind of jump around to a few different things. I do want to let you know that starting next week, Renee is going to be right after Compin, Colorado with Compin, California. So we're taking two of your most difficult states and we're giving them a full hour so that we can take the time and really dive into that. So Renee, thank you for joining me here today.
This is so fun. Of course I'm here to support. I love it. I'll be in the background. You know, we might mix it up a little bit. You got to keep people on their toes, right? So I'm here to support in any way possible.
Wonderful. Thank you. And today, I just saw him pop in the back. We've got Thomas Simmons. He had a few questions about comping in Colorado specifically. And I was like, oh, hell yes, get in here and come on live with me so that we have something to talk about before people know that they can come in here and drop addresses. And just a reminder, guys, I cannot comp nearly as well as Austin. There is a reason he is in this room. I take all of my numbers back to him and I go, are you sure this is correct? So dead serious, we've got the best brains possible in this room. An agent that's been here for over 18 and a half years, kicking butt in California. Austin, who is underwriting genius. And I'm going to pull Thomas up here on stage. He's got questions for us.
Let's do it.
Thomas, hi.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Amazing.
So glad you're here.
Background. Wait a minute. Is that a record I see? Is that vinyl?
That's called
No, it's a C. Oh, you had me going. I used to own a record store 100 years ago when they still sold records. So I thought that's what that was. Anyway, more important things, comping.
How's your day been, Thomas?
It's good. It was great watching you and Jamil just now. Straight out of Compin. You guys are awesome. But yeah, you know, I still have so many questions and I'm overthinking comping properties. I've been in touch with some fix and flippers, and you know, I've gotten mixed feedback on how I should be going about comping. So I'm sure there's a lot of personal perception to it, but you know, I wanted to see what the experts here were doing.
I'm glad you're asking these questions because in a lot of ways, that's the one thing that we can't do on Straight Outta Compin is like go really in depth in a market perspective. So hence why Compin Colorado is now going to exist. So honestly, just lay it on us. Like when you go to approach a property, what are some of the standout questions, or is there a property you want to look at right now? Feel free to ramble and we will catch and contextualize and hopefully fix the path.
Yeah, we could definitely look at a couple properties I had in mind. But ultimately, you know, there's the 70% rule that seems to be what people are kind of going by, but that doesn't really take into consideration all the other factors of like holding costs, you know, well, carrying costs, right? And commissions on the back end, and, you know, really how to get nitty gritty in our market of how much it's going to cost to rehab a house.
Perfect. Let's start with this 70% rule. This is literally a conversation Austin and I were
I
having
have an opinion.
yesterday. Like you can see him take a deep breath because he's like, oh, I have to deal with this all the time. Because the 70% to 75% rule was a thing in Colorado in 2020, in 2021, and most of 2022. It is not the percentage of ARV that we need to be functioning on in Colorado now. Will you enlighten us, Austin?
Yeah, so 70% for the most part is going to be high on pretty much anywhere in Colorado. Um, Mostly because, like what you said, like it doesn't really account for closing costs, carrying costs, everything that comes with just holding the property. There's a lot of cost that's incurred there. For the most part, you want to be under 65%. I generally don't even use a percentage for 99% of anything I touch. I run it as an actual formula. However, with that said, almost, I mean, I want to say 8 times out of 10, it comes out to about 60 to 65%, somewhere in that range. Just depending on, I mean, it depends on a lot of things like price point, condition, what needs to be done with it. You know what I mean? But for the most part, if you're between 60 and 65%, anywhere between Fort Collins and Colorado Springs, you're right in that sweet spot.
Okay, 60 to 65%.
Yeah.
Got it.
Definitely. And one of the things to take into perspective is that is calculating closing costs, all of that fun stuff. That's why you're pulling that percentage of ARV so low. If you, for example, knew the repair costs and you were going to calculate it with the repair costs in, that percentage would first be higher. And that's kind of what Austin's talking about, is generally he's actually looking at what the repairs are going to be and then calculating that in after just a small percentage for anything to do with commissions, etc.
Yeah, so for like a general rule of thumb, I mean, granted, this is with a grain of salt because everybody has different terms with their lender and everything like that. But for the most part, carrying and closing costs are going to add up to about 10% of ARV.
Now you're saying that
Okay.
is carrying costs. That's not, is that including escrow? Like what, define carrying costs?
Carrying costs is really just, to me, I mean, it's everything that it costs you to hold the property outside of commissions and regular closing costs.
Okay. So it's
If
really
you
like
take closing
20%,
costs,
right?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
well, no, because carrying costs and closing costs, carrying costs are usually 2 to 4% of ARV
Oh, I'm
total.
sorry. Yeah, I don't know why I said
And
that.
then
Yes.
if you
Yeah.
look at commissions and escrow fees, it's usually about 8%. So it can go from 10 to 12, but everybody has such different terms with lenders. It's kind of hard to pinpoint exact carrying costs. And then some people are just straight out cash also.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, there's still going to, yeah. Okay. I mean, there still could be a fee involved. We don't want to get too into the weeds, but
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, definitely got you. Okay. So did that answer your question, Thomas? Because see how it starts to add up quickly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also that has, you know, it's beneficial to know your buyer, right? Are they trying to use hard money and have that 12% in points on top of their, you know, what they're lending, or are they actually paying cash?
And here's something else to consider, because, you know, Corianne and I are real estate agents, right? I don't know, I'm going to speak for myself, Corianne, but I don't really consider myself a wholesaler. You know, wholesaler is a noun, wholesaling is a verb. So I consider it as a verb, right? Whereas I am, and Corianne is, I'll speak for you. We are investor friendly agents. So something else, Thomas, too, not to confuse the situation, but this is comping Colorado. This isn't just like wholesaling Colorado, right? So you might get other opportunity that comes down your path. And this is an opportunity to make money. So an opportunity that comes down your path that might be a buy and hold, or maybe it is a small lot development. And so you just said, what does your buyer want, right? So I encourage the listeners and you, Thomas, to listen for what is it that the buyer exit strategy is. Because if you're just simply doing wholesaling fees, which is the place to start, basically flipping is like the lowest hanging fruit, right? So if you're going to flip a property, now we're talking as Austin said, 65%, let's just use round numbers right now, like a 65%. And I encourage you not to leave money on the table, because if you're looking through different filters and you have different buyers, if you want to go this direction, if you just want to be a wholesaler, respect. And you're going to get other opportunities from agents that are going to come down the pike. And what is that? Is it a buy and hold? Is it a fix and flip? Is it a small lot development? So you want to know what those buyers' exit is. So it doesn't necessarily mean the percentage has to be the same. Did that make sense, or did I just confuse everybody?
Thomas, you're the voice of reason for everyone in the chat. Tell us if we're confusing or helpful.
Yeah, I think it's important to know what people's exit strategies are. Otherwise, you are leaving money on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, for example, I think one of the things, actually, let's take this train back. Where are you in your investment career, Thomas? Because that'll help me speak to you specifically. Give us the whole rundown. How did you get here?
Yeah. I have been, trying to get into a real estate investing mentorship or community for the last year. I did join Sub 2 last summer and got my first Sub 2 deal closed a week ago.
Amazing.
Actually, it closed during Squad Up Summit. So
awesome.
Yeah, congrats. Oh, give Thomas some love in the chat. That's huge. Getting through the first one is the hardest.
You know what they say about real estate agents and probably investors? If you want to do more business, go on vacation or go to the Squad Up Summit, because that's when your phone starts to ring. So there you go. Good for you.
Yeah. But ultimately, I've been pursuing Houston, Texas, and I would love to be in our market here. Lots of opportunity. And, I've met people on my side of the state. I'm on the other side. I don't know where everybody's at, but I'm on the Western Slope side. We have some investor meetups over here, and I've met some flippers, and I have some connections on the Front Range as well. But, I'm leaving a lot on the table as I speak. So I just want to be more involved with the industry.
Okay. So thank you. This is amazing. It's good to kind of have that context. And it takes me back to what I was going to say. It actually is appropriate to say is that use people like me and Austin. Together, we're kickflip consultants to give you that buyer knowledge and that buyer feedback so you can just focus on acquisitions. Because especially if you're kind of holding down some acquisitions in Houston and starting some acquisitions in Colorado, I promise you, trying to tell yourself, I don't know how to lock up this deal without knowing what my buyer needs. It's much, much easier to just come to somebody like me and go, tell me about all of your buyers. Because it is literally Austin's job to keep track of every single one of them and what they're buying at and what strategies they're interested in and all of that fun stuff. So we can go, hey, here's the trends. Here's the 3 different paths that we can potentially walk down to make sure that you're locking up at the right price. And then we take it back to that bunch of buyers and we get to make money together, which is the best part.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting. Real estate, whether you're on the retail side or the investor side, there's something that attracts the very nature of being rebellious and a lone wolf to this industry. And yet it's a little beyond, collaboration over competition. I think it's just kind of a very nature of, hey, I got this, I'll do this myself. And at the end of the day, that's not a way to scale. It's a way to start, so you can get to know a little bit of everything. It's kind of like the smorgasbord of what you're doing, right? And then you get to a place where you just realize you really can't keep doing it all yourself. It's not terribly sustainable. And maybe you do it, for a couple of years in your 20s when you have the stamina, but after a while, you're just like, I'd like to have a day off. And that really requires, doing partnership or collaboration. I know people get a little weird with the word partnership. They feel like, oh God, now we're in business together. So keep it light, go out and find your people and, just get to first base, like just go out for dinner and drinks, like, let's see if we even like each other. Let's do a couple of deals together, and after a while, if that starts to happen, then maybe you can actually do a formal partnership, like Austin and Corianne. But I do encourage people to spread the wealth, because there is enough money, because at the end of the day, that's where people get funny, right? So there's enough money and there's enough opportunities to go around. Or I think where people get stuck is you really have to call one on yourself. This is very simple work. It's not easy. And it does take a lot of stamina. You are making a lot of phone calls. You're hearing a lot of no's. It's a day in and day out kind of thing for, I'm not going to kid you, probably your first year. And it doesn't sound like much when you're looking in the rearview mirror, but a day in and day out of that for a whole year to not know the real actual data, your KPIs or key performance indicators, like you don't really have enough data to know how many contracts or how many contacts to a contract, how many contracts to a close. And that's the data you're looking for. So I'm talking about a little left of center here, but I just want to keep everybody on the straight and narrow that while you're doing this and while you're finding your partnership and all those things, you got to do it yourself. And you have to find it within yourself, to be able to do this work and have that stamina to while you're finding your people, and doing the collaboration. But that's where you're going to grow, is you're going to have those collaborative efforts, and you're going to be able to make more money that way, because your mind isn't scattered. You're not trying to do acquisitions and dispositions with the same person for an extended period of time. And guess what? If you want to scale, you're going to at some point need to share the wealth, whether it's an employee that you have on or whether you're just collaborating with someone like Austin or Corianne. At some point, there's a mental shift to say, no, not all the money comes into my coffers, but it's an exchange for your peace of mind. And then you just do what you're best at, whether that is acquisitions or dispositions. So not only is that for you, Thomas, but it's for the listeners at large, because I think that's where a lot of people are not truthful with themselves. They don't know what it takes to really do this, and they quit on themselves. So give yourself at least the first year to just get this thing barely ramped up, and call one on yourself, and do what you do best, and then go find your people to do the rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And when I started last summer, I spun my wheels for a few months. I was like, what the heck am I doing? I need to find a team that I vibe with. And I did. And that's the only reason I really got this, my first deal closed, was because I worked with a team. And there's so much value in that.
It really is. Will you tell us, like, how did that shift for you? When did it click that you were like, oh, I need a team? And how did that work in this last deal for you? Just for anybody out there that's working on their first deal. Inspire them, please.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I was spinning my wheels, making the calls, and then I'm like, well, what am I going to do with the contract? I'm going to have to go and find a buyer. Well, now I need to, I didn't have a contract. I'm like, should I be looking for buyers? And exactly, your mind is all over the place, and you're not able to focus and actually progress in a specific area that will get you to the finish line. Some people end up doing it. I don't know. Good for them, but I think most people end up getting so much value out of a team. So the very beginning of this year is January 3rd, Monday. I was like, I've been seeing these guys posting deals over and over. They're taking action. They're getting everything across the finish line. And I reached out to them, and they have a well-oiled team, with their transaction coordinator, dispo, acquisitions, team leads, and call calibrations. We're on nearly every day with each other, really attacking and getting better.
Mm-hmm. Are you still on the team?
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. So there you go, guys. it's go further faster, right? With the group. I think there's an adage around that. You know, you can go further faster with people. And sometimes we just got to get it out of my system, or get it out of, that was a Freudian slip, get it out of your system. Because me, I've been known to do it by myself a lot. And I can tell you from firsthand experience that it's a lot of work. And so I'm not afraid of a lot of work, or quote unquote hard work. It's just a matter of, you know, do you want to have a life? And I'd say for this business, if you start out on a team first, you can probably have a life faster. If you want to do it all by yourself, at least give yourself that year, you know, to 2 years up front. If you've really got it in your spirit, it's really on your heart to be like, my name's going to be on the shingle, just know that it's going to take something. And, you know, you want to also, I'd like to say something too, like, it's one thing to be on a team. And this is kind of notorious. I've noticed this more in the last maybe 10 or 15 years of the business, is that it's a little bit of a taker's mentality. So be careful about this, where if you're going to be on a team, you know, give yourself that opportunity to be on the team and contribute to the team. If not, have longevity with the team, as long as it's a right fit, obviously, right? But don't get on a team and have one foot out the door. Because realistically, yes, you're learning on somebody else's dime. And at the same time, like, you know, what would that be like to build? It's almost like being a part of a company or a corporation, you know, where do you always have to have your name on the shingle, you know, outside, or can you just keep going further, faster? So that comes back to self-awareness, you know, just know like, hey, what kind of life do I want to have? Because it's very glamorous to have your name on the outside of the shingle kind of thing, but it's also a lot of pressure. And so, you know, it's coming from Mama Bear over here. I mean, people are going to do what they're going to do. But I just say, you know, maybe test it out shorter, kind of, people say like fail faster, if you will. I don't really like that adage, but, you know, just if it's not for you, then get out and maybe go on a team, you know, or if it is for you and go, you know what, I really need to do this myself. And I'm the one that is going to attract and align with all the other people, and own that and really be that, because it's almost like a house of cards and you're just kidding yourself. And I see a lot of that happening, particularly in the investor world, not so much in the retail world, but in the investor world. So good on you, Thomas, for having some self-awareness and feeling like you're supported, you have the team, you have the plug-in, and, you know, stick with it for some time. I mean, no one's going to have the same job for the rest of their career, obviously, but, you know, stick with it, contribute back to that team. They're giving their time and money to you. And, you know, I say that to the audience too, like, have that mentality, because it really stinks when somebody comes on your team and then they get to know everything and they got all the trade secrets and out the door they go. You know, now that person has to start all over again. So, you know, as an insider comment, please heed that call. You know, don't do that to somebody that you're on a team with.
And to kind of circle this all back to Squad Up Summit, which is where Thomas and I got to meet, is just the fact that, like, Cody Sanchez, when she spoke at Squad Up Summit, her big thing was know your superpower, basically, and then bring that into business. And of course, I look at that as bring that into real estate, because that's the business I'm in. And for me, I walked away going, oh yeah, like, thank goodness I have Austin. Like, there's a reason. And in a lot of ways, like, we dated before we became official business partners, because we worked under another business name together to find out that we really like working together and that we have the opposite ends of the brain. You'll see him disappear every now and then from the screen because he's a numbers guy. He doesn't like to be up here talking and chatting like I do. But when I do this, it gets him more properties where he can go do numbers. So together we make a really great team. And I think, like, the more you can recognize what are the things I actually enjoy in this business, in this market, and really kind of push into that, the better off you'll be. And I even saw Neck Hammock. You were going to have to tell me your real name so I don't keep calling you Neck. But you like specifically said, I want to focus on acquisitions, and I'm thinking pre-foreclosures. That gives you a specific type of person that you're reaching out to, that you're dealing with. And you've got to know that you can handle that type of person and, like, gear yourself in your conversations to the types of deals that make you happy. And all of that was honestly, like, we just went on a total tangent because Renee and I can, and not really looking at any particular address. Is there something you want to look at, Thomas?
Heck yeah. I called an agent earlier today, and you know, she had been in contract earlier and fell out. And that's something that I don't want to put an agent through. Right? I don't want to lock up a deal and then not be able to do something with it, right? So that's my biggest fear. So I really want to, because it's a relationship business, right? And there's nothing like canceling a contract on, that's my fault and burning the bridge. So,
well, really quick. I mean, it is a relationship business, but I'm also of the opinion, like, I mean, Renee, Corianne, you guys are both agents, cancellations happen in traditional real estate all the time. So just because you canceled doesn't necessarily mean the relationship is burned, as long as you do it ethically. Like, you know what I mean? Don't wait till your very, very last minute of inspection period. Keep communication throughout. I mean, like me and Corianne had a deal not that long ago out in Florida that we canceled on, and he still texts me today and he's like, hey, still doing business? You still interested? Like, you know what I mean? So don't overthink a cancellation, because it doesn't always burn a relationship, as long as you act within ethics and let everybody know, like, you know what I mean, the situation, because stuff happens. I mean, underwriters mess up, escrow problems happen. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of factors that play into it other than just, oh, that Thomas guy doesn't perform. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I like to say, like you said, that I say set up expectations, right? So it's future pacing. That's something that I've taken on early on in my career, and it's clear, concise communication, right? So it's just future pacing, not only your buyer client, but also the agent, because I think what's happening out here is people are getting wild, and we're being taught to write a bunch of offers, and it's kind of like a see what sticks mentality. And then what's dangerous is people listen through their own filter. So somebody might be saying something. We'll use Jamil as an example with Astro flipping. He'll say, okay, here's some KPIs. You want to write, 5 offers a day minimally, let's say. And then all of a sudden people are just writing offers. But if you listen underneath Jamil's comments, a lot of the time, I think in his corporate offices that they actually perform an inspection on everything that they get under contract. So at least if you've spent may need a war chest of money, right? The $400 or $300 for the inspection, and you then have something to cancel with. Where it gets slippery is when investors / wholesalers get something under contract. And yes, Austin, it's an inherent risk. There can be cancellations of contract, but when you have no legs to stand on, and the relationship has gotten built with the seller and the listing agent, and then you cancel a contract based on, oops, I just got cold feet, that doesn't look good. It doesn't really look good to the investor, and it definitely doesn't look good to the seller, because the seller's like, well, why are they just canceling? Especially it's been 5 days, not like the next day, and you just got cold feet. Like maybe you opened up escrow, closed escrow, 2-3 days, something like that. So I want to put that out there as a distinction, because it's really getting wild out here, and it's not a justification to just cancel a contract. Yes, Austin, and please have some reasoning for it, so that the agent can go back to the seller and say, look, they performed an inspection, or they kicked the tires, or they had the GC come by, and make a legitimate, punch list of things that needed to get done. And here's the cost involved, something, anything. Just please do not come back with a verbal all the time. Oops, I guess we're just going to cancel. That's not cool. Yeah.
Where that starts to hurt is if you didn't have anybody walk that property, not even just a buyer, a contractor, and then you go try to cancel based off of an inspection reason. That's when it's like, wait a second. Yeah. So just to kind of contextualize, and especially because really you're having the conversation from two ends. You have Renee's perspective as an agent and Austin's perspective as an investor. And kind of the middle ground there is, how do you go about that inspection period, and how quickly do you move? And so let's say you're saying that inspection period is about 7 business days. That's generally normal, average. It's a little bit over a week, especially if you're doing the business day route. In the first 2 days, 48 hours, especially if you've got a dispo partner like me and Austin, but really if you've got a great buy list, in the first 48 hours, whether you've got it at the right price or you don't. And those conversations have to start 5 days earlier with the agent to let them know, hey, I'm I'm recognizing I might have missed a few things in our inspection process. I'm not quite sure I'm at the right number. I just wanted to give you a heads up. I'm doing everything I can to make sure that that number sticks and we're through the inspection period. But I'm giving you a little bit of heads up that I'm seeing down the road that this might not be the right fit. I'm going to keep you posted every step of the way. It is that clear, concise communication that Renee just hammers home all the time, and I'm trying to adopt and get better and better at. But really, that's what's going to save the relationship with the agent, because they feel like they've been walking with you hand in hand, even if it was a bumpy ride. You said like one little thing, and did you see how that shot us all off? We were like, hell yeah, let's talk about it. But you have an address hiding back there, don't you?
I do. Yeah,
All right,
I'll post it in the chat.
Okay, perfect. Voila. All right, so, and just a reminder, guys, we work in abundance theory. This is Thomas's address, not your address. And if you want to work with him on it or think you've got a great buyer that you can partner with him on, that is what the chat is for. But don't be grimy or I'll kick you out of here. All right. That's all.
There's a lot of addresses out there, guys. You don't need mine.
100%. Okay, let me.
Yeah, karma stings too, doesn't it? We've all done wrong once or twice in our life, and man, does it come back to bite you. Don't do it again.
Yeah, don't do it again for sure. All right, guys, let me see if I can share my screen appropriately. Sure did.
This house is kind of main. It's got carpet stairs going up to the bathtub.
He's already on top of it, flipping through photos. I mean, honestly, the first thing I say is like, market rejected your price, 104 days.
Ooh.
Damn. Have you already talked to the agent about this, or is this just one you're scoping to start?
No, I talked to her earlier today, and she asked me to email her an offer. I told her, yeah, I'll get one in this afternoon. She was going out on a personal trip somewhere, so she was going to be on an airplane. I might just text her and let her know that I'm working on it.
That sounds good. Even when they ask me to email them an offer, I don't. I wait until they can get on the phone. Ooh, look at that.
Oh my
Carpet steps
goodness.
up to the bathtub.
Green, no less.
Yum.
Oh my gosh.
Nice tub,
What is the description? Does it say we have a 1973 special?
We have a rare opportunity for the largest lot in the very popular Fountainside community. This open concept ranch style home has soared, vault ceilings. I'm going to go a little bit of blah, 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 blah. It's always important to read these to make sure when you have that conversation with the agent, you don't ask something dumb. But mostly I just want to know how she feels about this property even after 100 days. Per HOA. Okay, interesting. Property sold as is. So when you had the conversation with her, did she say that there was anything extraneous that you were going to need to work on, or is she seeing this as cosmetic?
Cosmetic, and she really wanted to hammer home that it was in an HOA.
Yeah, she was probably touching on that because the HOA here covers certain stuff. Like it says in the description that the HOA covers the roof, which is why you need homeowners insurance.
The roof was replaced a few years ago, but for some reason is damaged again. And she said they're in the works to get that scheduled for replacement, and that the HOA covers that, which is strange. I've never heard of an HOA covering the roof. The HOA says that they'll cover exterior. They don't cover exterior damage, but they do cover the roof.
Interesting.
That is interesting. It might be, I wonder, this is kind of who cares really, but I wonder if this was a small lot development originally, and then the developers actually put in the CC&Rs or the covenants, conditions, and restrictions that was the case. Because if it was a brand new build, they could have done anything. They could have made up anything they wanted to. Because I've never heard of that. It's really interesting, but that's kind of cool. You don't have to pay for your roof. It says the roof was replaced in 2020.
Yeah, but that it was immediately damaged or was like a shoddy repair or something like that.
Okay. So the first thing that I notice when I pull up comps, and again, guys, Austin's my guy when it comes to the numbers. So if he pops in here and says that there's anything that I'm doing wrong, that's why we have him. But the main thing that I'm noticing is that ILIF is a very busy road. It's a two-way street. It's, you know, you kick a ball out in front of this and your dog chases it and you're going to lose the dog. So, and that's how I generally think about whether it's a busy road. Is I quite literally am like, if the ball gets kicked out the front yard, what are we dealing with in traffic in the front? Or if the ball pops out of the backyard and the kid runs out that way, what are we dealing with traffic in the back? And in this scenario, it looks like we're citing that difficult traffic, if I'm understanding correctly. But that makes me want to lean more on the comps that are literally right off that road than it's anything within the neighborhood. This one
Yeah, and the other
is,
thing with HOAs is if you're comping, you have to make sure that it's in the same HOA. Because, for example, the fact that they cover the roof could be a plus for somebody, or it could be a downside to somebody because they're like, hey, there's no point in me paying X amount of dollars per month for something that may never come up. It really just depends on.
But what was that HOA? Did it say how much it was?
I think
$300 a month.
Wow, $300 a month.
$300 a month.
So is there anything else? Is there a community center or anything that we know of?
No, not that I'm aware of. I guess they didn't ask.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Well, then again, maybe they have HOA, guys, if you don't know, is homeowners association. So it usually pays for the common area. And in this instance, since it's a detached single family home, my guess would be maybe there's gardening. I mean, I'm assuming since it's a detached that they're still paying all the utilities. So if you have a condo building, typically it's more condos, especially in urban areas, then the water gets paid for, or something gets paid for, you know, collectively. And then any of the common area spaces, or if you live in a high-end building or something like that, you've got parking, or if it's in a gated community, you have a guy at the gate, you know, the front gate, or to pay for the motorization of the gate opening and closing. That's a lot of what an HOA will pay for, but this is interesting. I shouldn't say 300 is high, but if it's just for like roofs and maybe some gardening, that's a little high.
Yeah, they do front yard maintenance. That's as far as the agent told me.
So personally, I want to take the 550 that has too many beds, too many baths, but is off the main road. The issue is I don't know if this is in the same HOA. I can kind of guess based off of roads that the 525 is. So it's really between those two comps for me, and it lands me at the 525 as your after repair value. When you discussed numbers with this agent, did she say that there was wiggle room on that 465? Did you kind of probe for it?
I did probe for it, and she said that they had a lower offer that was rejected, but it was with financing versus cash. That they may be, in the beginning, they weren't on a timeline to get it sold. And now she said they are stressing because it's not sold yet. So there is some motivation there.
Well, I don't know the Colorado market, but it's not even in the percentages. Am I wrong? If I just do back of the napkin math?
Yeah,
Oh, no,
I mean, it's going to
like $100,000 over.
Yeah, that's
yeah. I told her, I warmed her up to it. I'm like, my offer is going to be well below your asking price. And she's like, that's all right. I'm like,
okay,
you know, it'll be
good.
If they're ready to make a move, you know, this is the move they can make, you know. So.
Well, this is back to expectations, like, you know, Austin was saying, and future pacing, if you will. So from an agent's perspective, when you guys are looking at this, and even Thomas, you know, it's all about the delivery, right? So if any of you guys are out there just writing offers for the sake of writing offers, and maybe that is the price, like a 340 should be the price, right? Or a 3 in front of it should be the price. Please have a conversation with the agent as well, because there is a fiduciary duty for the agent to present all offers. And, imagine if you were the agent, put yourself in those shoes, right? Where your sellers might be you're going to be the whipping post. You bring an offer with a 3 in front of it, and you might be the one getting yelled at. That's par for the course of the job that we do. But make sure that you're including the agent. Okay. The agents are not bad people. They are there to partner with you. And, it's so interesting because it's a lot of psychology with this. So if you are soft with the agent and putting in your offer, I say still put in the offer, because at the end of the day, it's really the seller that's in the driver's seat. And so sometimes, guys, if you just keep putting in these verbals and you don't actually have a written residential purchase agreement, an RPA, and you don't have that in front of the agent / seller, someone's going to come along in another 2 or 3 weeks with an offer with a 3 in front of it, and they're going to forget that you even existed. So sometimes, even though you probably know that your offer is not going to be accepted, it's put it in anyway. Again, be soft with the agent, because it's like, oof, now I got to take something that's $100 and some $1,000 less to my seller, who's going to probably be pissed off. But you're at least benchmarking or, bookmarking that offer, so that in 2 or 3 weeks, when you come back and you're like, hi, I'm Thomas, I'm still here, my offer still stands, we will close on the thing, because that is the right price. The seller doesn't know that. This is the psychology of the game, the psychology of sales. So that make sure you are putting in the offers so that you are the last person standing. Because there's one thing about investors, is they get shiny object syndrome and they get a lot of fear of missing out. So they just put in these offers and then they forget to follow up. And the one adage that I only really ever like is the fortune's in the follow-up. So if you are the last person there in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, heck, 6 months, if it's a probate, and you're the last one there and you've been in communication with that agent and your offer is still benchmarked, even though it's technically expired, it's benchmarked. And they're like, Thomas kept following up with me. The seller's now ready and motivated. And he's still here and he cares. I'm going to call him back. And guess what? You be the one to call the agent, right? But whatever, the agent's going to remember that. So that's a whole other part of this game, where even if you're afraid to put in a lowball offer, that you do that, and then you put it in your CRM, your customer relationship management system, and you stink and put a task in there to follow up, and then you stink and follow up, because the last person to follow up usually gets the deals. It's very rare in this business that you're going to get the deal, out of the gate. It kind of doesn't work that way. So that's just another, reminder to do the business in that way, coming from that space.
Just to touch on presentation also, this is honestly the main reason why I don't like the flat percentage, is because if you're newer and you just hear, okay, I need to lock stuff up at 65%, and an agent, and you present your offer like this one, $100,000 below list, and the agent is just drilling you on, okay, why? What is it that you really have no ground to stand on, because you don't really understand why? You know what I mean? Whereas me, if I'm presenting an offer, I'm like, well, okay, let's look at rehab costs, holding costs. I need to make money here. I'm assuming you want to make money here. Like, you know what I mean? There's factors that play into it. And the better that you can explain that, the more receptive they will be to your offer, because it's kind of hard to argue with numbers at some point. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, you'll get a lot of agents that'll tell you, hey, this is worth 600 grand fixed up. It only needs 80 grand worth of work. I'm only asking 500. You can make 20 grand there. But if you really break the numbers down, it's like, yeah, but there's 60 grand in holding and closing costs that you're not accounting for. And then I need to make money. So really, I need it closer to 400 for this to make sense.
Did you happen to run this through our calculator?
I didn't, because I am comping it loosely, because what's on Privy isn't.
So the agent thought that the back end number could be about 525 on the low end, is what she said. And you do see like one, I don't know how close it is. There is a house in that neighborhood that sold for 570. And if you look at it, the photos, like, they didn't really finish out the bathrooms. They maybe did some cabinets in the kitchen, but it's only like a halfway remodel.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's
Which one's the 570?
11205 East Baltic.
1 second.
Corianne, can you bring? Yeah.
I don't hate it, but if you take the basement and the upper level, there's about 500 extra square feet, and they have an above ground jacuzzi. An above ground jacuzzi doesn't really do much for me, like in my brain, but if it comes with the property, it can increase value a little bit. So there's caveats to it. But my main thing is the subject is listed as a 3-3. It's only a 2-2. So there's something that they added into the basement, and something in the basement is non-conforming. If it's a height issue, it's a big issue. If it's a window issue, it's not a super big issue. So in Colorado, Corian, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's 8 feet for the basement for it to be
You have
legal
to be
square
at
footage.
7 feet. You have to
7
be at
feet.
7 feet.
You have to be at 7 feet, and you have to have an egress window for a bedroom to count in the basement. Like this one, it does say in the listing that one of the bedrooms is non-conforming. I'm curious as to why, because like I said, if it's just a window or it's just a closet that's not in there, that's supposed to be in there, it's a simpler fix. But if it's a height problem, they're going to have to dig out the foundation, which is a lot of buyers won't do. There is buyers that will do it, but the risk that you incur with that, you need it really deep to entice somebody to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm convinced of the 570 specifically because it's within the neighborhood and not on the busy road, which is going to unfortunately have to take a few hits because of that busy road. I don't know why I can't find this in list form. Oh, finally. Okay. 1987. Yeah, I think we're lobbing from that 47 or that 570. We're basically lobbing off about 20% to be on that busy road.
Yeah.
And I think that's what lands us more comfortably, and our resale is probably closer to a 525.
Got it.
That being said, anytime an agent is giving me, feedback as to what they believe, I just push in for proof. And what I'm going to be asking is, okay, have you seen anything above 550 that's actually touching ILIF? Because the fact that it's touching ILIF is going to affect my resale value after I flipped this, and just see what she kind of drudges up. But that's why I think it's a little bit safer to be in that 525, 550. But Austin, you give us the final numbers here. What is the offer that you think Thomas should take to this agent?
The offer, I mean, I'd need to know more about the basement, honestly, because if it needs to be dug out, you're talking, if it needs to be dug out versus just remodeled, you're talking the difference of like $18 a square foot to like $85 a square foot. So that rehab is dramatically different. But given that they did put a bedroom down there, let's assume that it is a window problem, not a height problem. Because who wants to have a bedroom that's not over 7 feet tall, right? Like I would hit my head in a 6-foot bedroom.
Oh yeah.
Let me run it through the calculator and see.
If you look
While
at the
you're
photos,
doing
there is
that-
some photos of that basement down there, and there is a window. The ceilings, pictures could be deceiving, I guess, but they look 7 feet. So
Okay, I think they are within that, and the reason I can tell that is based off of the one window that we can see in the basement. This is an egress window. You can open it, you can crawl out, and you can get out in this area, and that's what's most important to us, to make sure that we can actually repair that basement and count it as square footage. So I think you're in the clear in terms of basement ceiling, and some of that is the fact that they even got a ceiling fan in here without chopping off heads. So I'm feeling pretty confident that we're within the right ceiling height. And they already have one egress window. So personally, I would probably make that the bedroom, right where they have that bar right now, to add.
Well,
bedrooms.
there's already one down there that's non-conforming.
Let's see if we can find it. It might be
How is
non-conforming by just not having a closet, which those are the easiest to just slap a closet in there.
Is Aurora a good area, like for folks that maybe aren't in Colorado but are just tuning in? Like what's that neighborhood or area of?
Yeah, so Denver in a lot of ways is a sprawling suburb that turns into more suburbs. And Aurora is one of the suburbs. It is closer to the airport. The one thing about this, and this is another reason why I kicked that 570 down to the 525, is in this particular area, you're looking at a first-time home buyer, a newer family with 2.5 kids, and they keep their price ranges lower, even on the resale side. So if you're pushing into the 570s or the 600s in this neighborhood, you're going to have to sit on that property much longer to get its resale than if you were sitting, honestly, anywhere between that 465 and 525. That's where the new home buyer can actually purchase in a window.
See, and that's a brilliant answer, because that is essentially going to factor in. It does have a dollar value to it. I don't know if it's a line itemized dollar value to it, but guys, that you got to think like you're a client, right? Think like the buyer, think like the flipper. And that's where I was going into, who is your actual buyer? Because if this is a buy and hold buyer, or maybe they want to do a short-term rental on this, is it the first time buyer? Like, who's doing what here? And so therefore you back it out. But for the most part, staying within, say, the fix and flipper, right, as your buyer, that's going to give you probably the least expensive. That's the baseline for least expensive. And then you can figure out, like, well, heck, if none of my flippers are going to buy it, do I think somebody who wants to do a short-term rental is in there? Can we do a pad split in there? I mean, I might be getting a little far out, but this is the truth. This is the language that you want to live into. So whomever's listening to this, even if it's day one and you're like, oh my God, Austin, Thomas, Corianne, Renee, like, what are they talking about? All this lingo, all this language. Well, this is what you signed up for. You know, you want to bring on with more of an open heart, not an, oh my God, this seems so overwhelming. Why is this not like a Bravo TV show and I'm just going to make $100,000 commission? No, that's not reality, right? You need to get in the headspace of, I've chosen this path and I'm going to learn as much as I can. And there's so many different exit strategies. So yeah, listening to it from a fix and flip, just like Corianne said, that's a first-time buyer price point. If the first-time buyer is basically at 525 and not 575, that goes into more holding costs. Not even holding costs to actually do the stink and flip, but holding costs because the thing hasn't sold. Every month that hasn't sold, that's more profit that is going out the window.
Exactly.
That's a big paycheck. Like, especially if you've got a hard money lender and percentages that they're charging right now, every month hurts. Like, and that's why you have to think of that resale value, or anytime you come to a property that's flipped but been listed for 50 plus days, they're in a pickle. They're trying to figure out how to get that off of their books as fast as possible.
Yeah. Thomas, what did you have or in mind for an offer on this?
Man, originally, you know, I had the ARV too high. So I was thinking 330 as my offer, but now with ARV lower, I'm thinking it's probably under 300K. Am I?
Really?
No, that'd be kind of steep. With where it sits, I mean, we could probably sell this around 335, 340. So
Okay.
I mean, I would say shoot for like a 320. There's a little bit of wiggle room in there, because let me see if I can share my screen.
Oh, I feel all confident now. That's what I had. Come on, Thomas.
I had 330.
I mean, hey guys, listen, this is not about me, but just for a quick second. I'm not even in the Colorado market. Okay. I've never even been to Colorado, but this is the type of stuff that you get to live into, right? You know, some basic rules, and then you start applying them, and then you have all the fancy stuff like these guys have here. Don't let this scare you. That's just that's a bit of a crutch, so you can do it at a glance faster. But there's something so empowering knowing certain specific rules that investors are kind of listening for, and then you can do back in the napkin type of math, and boom, 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 you're in the ballpark. So it's not a brag, but it's the fact that, you know, I've been doing this for a minute. I'm not even in this market, and I was right in that ballpark, because I knew some of the rules, and all I did was apply them. So don't overthink this business too much.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just give you a brief, quick breakdown of like this. So right here, you see it's 1935. Obviously, that's not the 1290 that you see on Privy, and it's not the 1290 plus the also 1290 basement. So basements cost about half what it costs to renovate like a main floor. So how I do it is I literally just whatever the basement is, I cut it in half, the square footage, and then add it to the main floor so that I can just run price per square foot instead of running 1290 times price per square foot and then 1290 times half of this. It's easier to just cut the square footage in half for the basement. And then it'll give you basically the rundown of everything. So like for example, if the agent here is like, if you're like, yeah, this needs about 80 grand worth of work, and she's like, okay, well then at 400 there's still room for a profit. In theory, yes, but also I mean, there's $42,000 in closing costs with agent commissions and escrow fees, probably another 8 to 10 grand in holding costs, assuming you're in and out quick enough. Because with interest rates right now, this is probably closer to 12 to 15, to be honest. If you're in there, say 4 months, 5 months, but that's kind of the piece that Renee was talking about, where holding costs can go up dramatically if you're holding it for too long after the renovation. Because let's just for odd numbers say that your payment's $3,000 a month. Well, 4 months is sitting on the market. That's $12,000 that you just took out of your profit margin. So
Yep.
with stuff like this is why I like this method better than just the percentage. But I mean, you see, like here, it still came out to 64%. So if you would have just done a flat 65% as a dispo price, it would have worked. But this is much easier to look at and contextualize to the agent instead of just, oh, well, that's just where I need it. You tracking with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I demand a screenshot of that thing before I ever put an offer in, because that information allows me to sort of overwhelm the agent with the data. And I'm like, this number, this number, this number, are you seeing all of these things that are leading me to giving you this number? I'm not trying to lowball you, the worst
Yeah.
word in the world. I'm literally using data and numbers to show you why I have to be at 320 in this scenario.
And it's not just a justification to the agent. Sometimes I feel like people misinterpret that. It's actually helping the communication, because no one ever wants to look silly, right? Like hands up, who wants to look dumb? It's very infrequent that somebody says, I'm going to be so self-aware that I'm going to call myself on one. It's very infrequent. We're very afraid of looking silly as human beings, right? So the agent's just dog paddling, trying to be smart, right? I mean, you can't blame them. And so if what Corian's saying, you know, if you can bring something like this, like a calculator, to the agent, it's opening up a dialogue. It's just opening up a conversation. It maybe even, like you're saying, a screenshot, and maybe even encourage, you know, the agent, depending on the relationship. You don't want to patronize somebody that doesn't want to hear it. But if they're open to it and it's an invitation, it's all in your delivery, and you say, hey, agent, allow me the opportunity to share this with you. If you feel it necessary, please bring this to your sellers. Do you see how different that is? And it's very combative. Like Austin was saying, you know, oh, I just, because I need it at 65%. Listen, this is somebody's biggest investment. You know, people are not out here giving away money. And money is expensive right now. You know, when the market's going up like it was the last 12 years, somebody goes, $5,000, $10,000 here. It's a psychology. But right now, with the way food prices are and inflation and everything else, you better bet that somebody is going to hang on to every last dollar. And if it occurs to them that you're taking away psychologically their dollars because you're owed something, oh, I need it at 65%, it doesn't land well. And this is where I think the investor and the agent are not embracing each other, and the agent especially doesn't care, because they're the one holding the keys. They're the one that has the listing. So they're like, oh, investor, you're just a dime a dozen. Another 5 of you are going to call me tomorrow. So how are you going to be different with that agent? And Corey, and I think that's so brilliant that you said, take a screenshot and send it to them. And don't be nasty about it. Like, oh, look, this is my justification on 65%. Hey, agent, let's have a conversation, right? Again, the delivery.
And just to clarify, I don't send him the screenshot. I just require Austin to send me the screenshot so that I know what I'm saying in the offer, because he's the one back there doing that math and showing those numbers. Now I have to be the one to communicate it out of my mouth so that the agent understands it.
Would you though?
What were
I'm
you
kind
gonna
of
say,
curious,
Austin?
Corianne. Would you do that? Maybe not the screenshot, but would you take kind of like highlights of stuff and say like, here's our cost or here's, I mean, would you do that or is that giving away too much?
I have,
Okay.
but I have a couple times. It depends on the agent that you're dealing with, right? Like obviously if they're real hard up on their numbers and sometimes it's not needed. Like sometimes the only times I have is I've given an agent a verbal of look, 525 ARV, 77,000 rehab, 42 closing costs, 8,000 carrying costs. I need to make about 60 grand here. Here's my number. And they're like, oh, that makes too much sense. And then they dig deeper on how I got that number. Like that's very precise numbers. How are you doing this? And I'm like, oh, I have a calculator. Here's my screenshot.
Okay, there you go.
And then like
Yeah.
we have VIP agents. This is kind of a tangent, but we have VIP agents that will give lists to, like seller lists. And those types of agents, I would share this with as like, here's the utilization. This is how I use it. Here's my breakdown so that you don't need to call me every single time a seller agrees to meet with you. You can go to the listing appointment with a vague number ready. What could that change between your assumption of ARV and my assumption of ARV? Yeah, but at least it's here's around what I think my investor would pay.
Fair enough.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Thomas, thank you for being willing to come on this live and experiment with us on day one. Do you feel like you're taking away what you need for this particular property?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Okay, cool.
All of the insights been phenomenal.
Good.
You email
Yay!
me,
What
I
that
can
means to me
send
is it
you-
means you're coming back too. Yay! What were you gonna say, Austin?
If you email me, I can send you a screenshot of this also to give like so that you can take it to the agent and like actually look at these numbers while presenting the offer.
Awesome. Yeah, I will.
I can see Thomas. Your whole face changed. That's good. Do you feel empowered with the information? Right? You feel empowered with the data. You weren't just so willy-nilly on the percentages, right? Now you've got something to go with.
Yes.
Yeah, good. And that's for everybody else too, right? That does come with experience. So sort of like myself or, Corianne or Austin, right? We have that experience. We put in our 10,000 hours, right? We have a little bit of bragging rights on that, even though we're always going to go back to our tools and maybe ring a friend and say, hey, what do you think? Right? Because it's an art, not a science. And while you're doing that, like a Thomas, who's still fairly new in this, even though you said you started, over the summer, you're almost up to a year, that still would be considered fairly new, that call and ask. And what we ask is if you call any of us on anything, right, in our prospective markets, is that you also don't just call and take information from someone, is that they are giving their precious time to you. And so if there is an opportunity to do a deal with, any one of us in our prospective markets, right, because I'm in the California market, that you would come back to us. And so it doesn't have to be a tit for tat. Things come back in different ways. But that, someone like a Thomas would come and say, hey, Corianne, or hey, Austin, I've got something in the Colorado market. What is this? And can you help me comp this? And then don't go off and, use somebody else necessarily, kind of give us first dibs on it. So that's just a request. Yeah. When you're dealing with people out here in the world, no one's going to say that to you. So I'm saying it now. It's an unspoken invitation. It's not an expectation, but it's an unspoken invitation that if the person has helped you, that at least you can give them first dibs on it. On the disposition.
100%. Thank you for even just reminding people of that. I mean, it's kind of like an understood reality in the way that we all work together. But that's really the goal of Compin Colorado Live here, is that we're starting to really collaborate, work together, and if the tide rises, so do all of the boats. And so, yeah. Thomas, I really want to see you succeed here in Colorado, and I want to be a part of that mission. So hit us up, even if it is outside of Compin Colorado, but come back next week. We're always going to be on Wednesdays right after Straight Outta Compin. And then after Compin Colorado, starting next week, Compin California with Renee. And ideally, we'll be doing more than one address per episode. But today it was really nice to just do kind of a deep dive and a deep look at what's going on in your world, Thomas. And I think it's going to help a lot of other people who tune in as well. So thank you for being brave and doing just that.
Thank you, guys.
Thomas, how can people get a hold of you? There is somebody in the chat with a pre-foreclosure sub 2, and that is not my world. That's your world.
Yeah, you bet. Instagram is Thomas Simmons, or should be tjsimmons.rei.
Let's get it in the chat. .rei. Ooh, that dot. That could throw a girl off. Here we go. Voila.
And guys, even though I'm here to support Corianne and Austin, if there's anybody who's, we're close enough, right? Colorado, California. I am a licensed real estate agent. So even if you've got somebody who's just moving on a retail level and you're an agent, I'm happy to do referrals. If you have somebody who's just a friend or family member moving in or out of California, anywhere in California, I can help you. I specifically live in Los Angeles, so I know LA like the back of my hand. It is the size of Portugal. It's quite a big county. So in 25 years of me living in Los Angeles, I have made it to the very top and to the very bottom of Los Angeles County, as well as the surrounding counties as well. So if I can be a support of anybody just because we're kind of kissing cousins here next door to each other, don't hesitate. I'm happy to answer questions as well.
Cool. And with that, we're all going to get off of our chairs and hopefully go take a walk and reset. But thank you, everybody that's hung out with me today in Straight Outta Compin and here in Compin, Colorado. Thank you to Renee, Austin, Thomas. You guys are amazing. We will see you here again, no doubt. And I hope you guys all have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Bye, guys. See you next week.